look, the issue here is there's an issue on the emails. People have apologized. That's going to be taken care of by the DNC. But we're talking here about a government that has never been our ally, never been a friend, an incredibly repressive government. And the man who thinks he's going to be president of the United States stood in front of the world and called on Russia and Putin to hack into the emails of the former Secretary of State. I mean, it's honestly, and I know I'm partisan in this, clearly, but it's honestly almost treasonous.
Well, and it's treasonous to have 30,000 emails disappear. It is treasonous to the American public, and nobody wants to stand here and say that on this stage. But look, we keep dodging and throwing it back on everything on Trump, and I swallowed it all week, but I'm telling you, you can say all this you want. The American public is fed up with the deception of this administration, and Donald Trump is the only one that has the courage to talk about it.
Do you actually think?
Hi everybody, my name's Mike. This is my YouTube page, Mox News. So my bouquet is still looking lovely. I'm going to share it with you as long as it looks beautiful. And I think it looks pretty good still. Okay, so I think these prostitutes completely missed the point. Okay, and that is that Hillary Clinton's server has already been hacked. Most likely by foreign governments, as stated by, I believe, the head of the FBI. Now, Hillary Clinton's emails have already been hacked. So what Donald Trump is asking Russia to do, and he's not really asking them to do anything, he's just saying, I hope you might have these and that you could do that if you did. But what Donald Trump is saying, and it's what he has said over and over again during this campaign. He's absolutely right about Hillary Clinton not having a press conference. I'm so glad he made that point right at the beginning of his press conference, which if you didn't see, is absolutely must-see video. It's awesome. And I am not a Donald Trump fan. Okay, I'm telling you right now, Gary Johnson is the only other candidate on all 50 ballots. Gary Johnson is the only other candidate on all 50 ballots. Gary Johnson is a viable option. Gary Johnson absolutely will not infringe on your Second Amendment rights. Absolutely will not. Do you really trust the law and order President Donald Trump to not infringe on your rights? Do you really trust the law after all this law and order crap? But I digress. They missed the point about Hillary Clinton's 30,000 missing emails after calling Donald Trump treasonous. They completely missed the point, which is Hillary Clinton's, the Russians can't, he can't call on Russia to hack Hillary Clinton's servers now because Hillary Clinton's servers have been dismantled and are being forensically gone through, or have been supposedly. But they were already hacked by most likely foreign governments, and that and the real point is that Hillary Clinton, that means that these foreign governments, Russia, China, whoever else, have blackmail files on Hillary Clinton, on the 30,000 emails that she didn't want you to see, that she deleted, that she hired top professionals in the tech industry to delete off her servers. She did not want you to see those, but somebody probably has them. And Donald Trump is simply saying, hey, why don't you throw those out there too? I think some people might be interested in that. And I think he's right. And I don't think he's doing to call him treasonous when Hillary Clinton has a giant blackmail file on her and thinks she should be the most important person in America, in the world, possibly, is just idiotic. She doesn't care about you. She cares about her. Okay? She doesn't care about women. Just, oh, I'm playing the woman card full on. Deal me in. Then why didn't she get a female vice president? She couldn't find a female worthy of being vice president? You guys think about this at all? Because If I was a female, that's something I'd think about. On her first big move to put a woman in power, she chose a douchebag male. Again, I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I'm going to play this whole treasonous clip for you. Okay? There's a post-Donald Trump press conference, Prestitute gaggle. But I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I'm telling you, vote for Gary Johnson. I'm telling you right now, officially, Mox News is saying, vote for Gary Johnson. He's the only other candidate on all 50 ballots in all 50 states. Please consider what it is I'm saying. He is a true alternative. He's not a spoiler. The never Trump people, the never Hillary people, if you got together and said Gary Johnson is the choice, if you got together with the Bernie Sanders people, because you should, every single Bernie Sanders voter should be an absolutely never Hillary voter at this point, because Hillary cheated your candidate. Hillary cheated. We all know it. Thanks to a hack in the DNC servers. I think those people are heroes. I think they're especially heroes to release it the day before the convention. Thank you. So, vote Gary Johnson. Watch this clip. It's great. It's fantastic. And go see the press conference if you haven't watched it. It's a worthy watch. I'm telling you. Stay cool. One of these days, this war is going to end. Not with Hillary Clinton in charge. I promise that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think it's time for Hillary Clinton to do a news conference because it's almost a year now, and it'll be interesting to see how she does. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Might as well just tell him to have a good time. He has done one bad job. Okay, thank you, everybody.
And there you have it. Donald Trump speaking to the press for almost an hour, taking questions from the media on a whole slew of topics, but especially talking quite extensively about the DNC email leak, the strong evidence that Russia is behind it, and also the accusations that Russia was doing it in order to tilt the scales on this election. Donald Trump, when he was asked about that, he calls it a total deflection on the part of the Hillary Clinton campaign. But then he also said this. Listen.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press. Let's see if that happens. That'll be next.
All right, that was Donald Trump just moments ago. We're going to bring in our panel one by one. David Gregory, host of the David Gregory podcast, our political commentator here. It is unusual, which is a charitable way of putting it, for a presidential candidate to call on the intelligence services of another nation to hack into American government emails. But that's what Donald Trump just did.
You know, I've run out of words to express, my shock and how completely beyond the pale that Donald Trump is as a potential leader of the free world and commander-in-chief of our country. This was truly beyond the pale. I mean, he is encouraging Russia, which by all accounts was behind a leak of our one of our major political parties, to do more, to go beyond, to try to hack into Hillary Clinton's server to find missing emails, to kind of get in the middle of the scandal. It's as if, this is a child playing with matches who doesn't understand how badly he and the country can get burned. It's a very serious thing. And I think that, the one thing about Trump is that he is very clear for all to see. He is making very clear what he thinks, how he comes by information. And I think, frankly, the lack of seriousness and the intemperance with which he speaks about important national security matters should certainly give people pause. And I don't think there's anybody who would think that was anything but a fair reading of what we've seen here. Vladimir Putin is dangerous. He's been dangerous to a Democratic president, to a Republican president, President George W. Bush, who thought he had a better relationship with him. And now this nominee of the Republican Party wants a closer relationship with Vladimir Putin, which is what he said, and he thinks that he has the ability to have a better relationship. There's no evidence to believe that's the case.
Andre Bauer, let me bring you in, former Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, also a Donald Trump supporter. When you hear Donald Trump say that, Russia, I hope you're listening, and I hope you can find Hillary Clinton's 30,000 missing emails. Do you support that?
I don't know that I support it, but it shows the frustration. Look, Donald Trump has his finger on the pulse of America. He understands what the average folks are feeling, and they're frustrated that the shift has now become Russia has these emails, not the deception, not the negative things, talking about people from a party that says they're over-embracing when the leader of their party is saying so many negative things about so many people, and the whole conversation has changed now, and it's deflect, and make it all about Russia. And I think he's saying, look, everybody
but
here.
Isn't it one thing to say that the Hillary Clinton campaign has gone too far out in front of the investigation that is still underway? No one knows yet what the motive of these hackers was. And another thing to say, actually, Russia, you could help me out.
Right. I mean, look, the issue here is there's an issue on the emails. People have apologized. That's going to be taken care of by the DNC. But we're talking here about a government that has never been our ally, never been a friend, an incredibly repressive government. And the man who thinks he's going to be president of the United States stood in front of the world and called on Russia and Putin to hack into the emails of the former Secretary of State. I mean, it's honestly, and I know I'm partisan in this, clearly, but it's honestly almost treasonous.
Well, and it's treasonous to have 30,000 emails disappear. It is treasonous to the American public, and nobody wants to stand here and say that on this stage. But look, we keep dodging and throwing it back on everything on Trump, and I swallowed it all week, but I'm telling you, you can say all this you want. The American public is fed up with the deception of this administration, and Donald Trump is the only one that has the courage to talk about it.
Do you actually think to say, I'm going to be friendly with Vladimir Putin, be friendly? It would be great if we got along. How do you think Ukraine feels about that? How do you think the people he repressed feels about that? That is an irresponsible statement, and that is what we just saw.
Well, I think you see somebody that wants to be friendly with everybody. You try to give everybody a fair shake and try to engage.
He's not giving out lollipops on the playground.
Hold on, Christine.
Except for our NATO allies, with he considers to be like lessees in one of his buildings. If the faucet's leaking, he'll fix it only if the rent is paid up. There is a disconnect, Andre, between his support of dictators and his dismissal of allies. And average Americans, I think you're right that Donald Trump has struck a chord with average Americans, but you're wrong that average Americans think Russia should be spying on the former Secretary of State on behalf of Donald Trump. That's wrong. That's not where average America is. And what he said today was startling. And there's one reason he's having this press conference today, and that's because the idea that Russia is somehow meddling in our elections is a cementing story. He has to come out and act like he has nothing to do with it. I don't know if he has anything to do with it, but it is very clear he has made a number of statements pleasing to Russia and Vladimir Putin, and Russia has been clearly interested in propping up Donald Trump. This is the story of the year if it turns out to be true that Russia has meddled in our elections. That's why he's talking.
It was reported on CNN this morning that it was not the Russian government. It may be Russians, but even they said.
Hang on, let me tell you what was reported. What was reported this morning right now is that the U.S. government says it is highly likely that the Russians were involved in the hack. They did not say whether it was the Russian government or private or intelligence service or not, but that it is being investigated, and it is possible that there were government agencies involved right there. That's our latest reporting on that right now. Mark Lamont Hill, there's another aspect of this which actually was alluding to right now, which is Donald Trump somehow in cahoots with the Russians in any way over this? Now, he just flatly denied it. He said no. He said he's never met Vladimir Putin. He said no contact with him.
Even though he's contradicted that in a debate.
Exactly. Yes. He said he had no business dealings with them. Now, one way you could prove that you have no business dealings with them or they haven't given you any money in any way is to release your tax returns, which he once again today is saying he won't do.
Coincidentally.
Well, first, I'm not convinced that there's an elaborate scheme or plot with Donald Trump and the Russian government, mainly because I don't imagine Donald Trump to be that sort of thoughtful and disciplined in order to and quiet to carry something like that out. I mean, him to have a subversive plot would require him not to say things out loud. And as we saw in this press conference, he seems thoroughly undisciplined on the campaign trail and unable to contain himself. The other part of your question, I think is an interesting one, which is, do the tax returns show us something? Of course they do. This was one of the world's longest pressers. I was sort of joking with Essie during the presser. I said, if you want to end quickly, just ask him about his tax returns. He'll give a 5-second answer. He doesn't want to disclose. I always thought it was a Planned Parenthood thing. I thought it was some sort of a liberal organization that he was aligned with through his money. But it could be something deeper, and that's what the American public needs to find out.
Can I just say, too, there's a time for political fighting, and there's all kinds of issues on both sides. This is dangerous talk,
Absolutely,
insofar as it relates to the actual realities of the presidency. forget about potential working with Vladimir Putin. His support for Russia, his lack of support for NATO, is objectively an invitation for Russia to attack our allies. That is a fact. That is incontrovertible. The encouragement of a foreign leader to further manipulate our political process or to commit an act of cyber attack goes far beyond emails that could cripple our fundamental infrastructure. So what I observe about Trump is that there has not been any evolution of what he knows about critical issues that could affect the presidency if were he to become presidency, nor a desire to go deeper on those issues. And again, for any of us who have covered the presidency up close, words matter, actions matter, unpredictability matters. You're talking about life and death issues here. I think this is what people really ought to focus on. There's plenty of time for all these political debates and touching nerves of voters, which is all legitimate, but this goes far beyond that.
You might be too generous, though, David. It might not be that he doesn't care. I mean, they just know he may just be indifferent to it. He may prioritize winning over it.
Hold on one second, guys. Let's bring in Chief National Security Correspondent Jim Sciutto. He was listening in on the press conference with us. And Jim, you also have been doing a lot of talking with your sources about where things stand in terms of the investigation into this email leak. And honestly, I want to get your reaction to what you heard Donald Trump say.
Well, first, let's just set the record straight here. Donald Trump in the news conference says it's doubtful or unlikely that Russia hacked the DNC's emails. That is a direct contradiction to the view of U.S. intelligence. In fact, I spoke to a U.S. official briefed on the investigation today. In his words, he said that there is little doubt that Russia is behind the hack. And when we say Russia, and when they say Russia, they're not talking about just some random hackers working for no one. This is seen as a Russian intelligence operation with approval at the highest level. So this, in their view, goes right to the top. And just to echo David Gregory's point, I speak to people in the intelligence community all the time, not just about Russian hacks, but Chinese hacks, North Korean hacks. They take these very seriously. These are not things that they laugh about or joke about or call political attacks. They look at them very seriously. They look at them as part of, in effect, a low-level war. And that's the way Russia views them. Russia views these as attacks in what they call the information space, which is a front in a war, just as, operations at sea, in the air, nuclear weapons are. This is one front in what they see, not as a declared war, not even perhaps as a new Cold War, but as a new kind of war with a country it sees as an adversary. Just one final thought. U.S. intelligence characterizes Russia as an existential threat to the U.S., not as a theoretical threat, as an existential threat. So we are in very serious territory here.
All right, Jim, stand by. I want to bring back former Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, Andre Bauer, Donald Trump supporter. You've heard the discussion here, and you heard our latest reporting on the Russian involvement here, the possible Russian involvement in this hack. Again, as a former government official, state government official, does it concern you that the Russians are hacking into the U.S. political system?
It concerns me when anybody can hack into it. But again, and I think you're missing it on NATO. The American public is fed up with footing the bill for everybody else. If I don't pay my car payment, it's going to get repossessed. But we made contracts that other countries.
I'm sorry, isn't that a separate issue?
It is, but it became part of this issue real quickly just a minute ago. It became part of the discussion. And again, I think you're missing the boat. The talking heads may say all this is so important. The average guy on the street and gal are fed up, and they see a dodge and a shift and a duck.
What the people here on this panel are saying, David Gregory, you heard it from S.E. Cupp, a Republican, a journalist, and you're hearing from Democrats here, is that to say this kind of thing, to invite the Russians in, people here are saying, is disqualifying to be commander-in-chief. Do you feel that is the case?
I don't. Again, you're accusing him. I mean, I'm not saying you, I apologize. Several people are accusing him of being tied to the Russians. I mean, that has become the story. And so here the guy's saying, look, if you got it, out it. And I don't blame him. If I were him, I'd be defensive. I'd be frustrated. I'd be angry that I'm being...
Would you like to see Russian hackers hack into Hillary Clinton's email and take her emails? Would you like to see Russian hackers? Are you asking Russian hackers to hack into anyone's email in the United States?
I'm not asking anybody to hack into anybody's email, but I would tell you this. If I was warned by the federal government that somebody was getting ready to hack my emails, I'd be very reluctant to be sending any emails, and the DNC kept doing it.
All right, let's go to Jim Acosta, our chief White House correspondent, who's actually covering the Trump campaign, was at that news conference at Doral in Florida. Jim, you were one of the reporters not told to be quiet, which was interesting in and of itself by Donald Trump there, but this was an unusual event to say the least.
Well, I think you have to give Donald Trump credit for one thing. He is right that he is holding more press conferences than Hillary Clinton. He demonstrated that again today. Whether or not that is to the delight of his staff members, one can only guess. But at the same time, we should point out, John and Kate, there is a little bit of news to report in that the Trump campaign just put out a statement from Mike Pence, which appears to go farther than what Donald Trump was willing to say at this news conference in the last hour and a half. Just reading from this statement, Governor, I can assure you both parties and the United States government will ensure there are serious consequences. That really goes farther than what Donald Trump said in this room. I asked Donald Trump repeatedly, will he call on Putin to stay out of the election? He did not want to go that far, and he seemed to be signaling that it will be a new day in the White House if he's elected president when it comes to this policy with Russia. He declined to say whether he would meet the NATO commitment to defend the Baltic states against Russian aggression, and he also repeatedly said he didn't have business dealings in Russia, but then went on to concede when pressed that, yes, he held a Miss Universe pageant there. So clearly, there is a signal from Donald Trump, I think, to the world that if he's elected president of the United States, he will have a different relationship with Vladimir Putin, have a different relationship with Russia, and a lot of things are going to be on the table, including those NATO commitments. I think the other bit of interesting news that came out at the very end of this news conference is when Donald Trump essentially said, shame on the people who are chanting, lock her up, during his convention. That was the most popular chant of his convention last week, and he seemed to say at the very end of that news conference that he really did not agree with that sentiment at all. John and Kate?
Jim Acosta in Florida at the press conference that just wrapped up with Donald Trump. We have much more of our special coverage of Donald Trump's press conference as well as the Democratic National Convention. We are in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Much more continues right now